Alright, in this video, I want to talk about marriage and more specifically Christian marriage. I was looking for a picture to use to demonstrate looking for marriage, and a lot of them were just ladies posing, trying to, look beautiful and attract a husband. But this one got the point that I wanted to get across because there's sites such as Christian Mingle to get Christians to hook up and hopefully get married. And that's the point of it all, right? And I always thought that was strange. And then I remembered listening to Robert Breaker, and he was talking about how he wanted to go do missionary work, I believe in South America, and they didn't want him to go, and I don't know if they wouldn't let him go until he was married because they didn't want him to be tempted when he went and did missionary work. And it's not as if being married removes that temptation. So that just is silly and stupid. But it also didn't make sense because Paul was never married. And he also says this. So it's weird that Christianity really encourages marriage, even though the Bible doesn't. It doesn't say not to get married, but it's actually saying that it's better not to. As we read here in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 at verse 27, it says, Art thou bound unto a wife? Seek not to be loosed. Art thou loosed from a wife? Seek not a wife. But and if thou marry, thou hast not sinned, and if a virgin marry, she hath not sinned. Nevertheless, such shall have trouble in the flesh, but I spare you. So he's saying if you get married, you're going to have troubles that the unmarried aren't going to have to deal with. And he's trying to spare you from this, as he himself is not married. And then he says here at verse 32 through 35, But I would have you without carefulness. He that is unmarried cares for the things that belongeth to the Lord, how he may please the Lord. But he that is married careth for the things that are of the world, how he may please his wife. There is difference also between a wife and a virgin. Right here is telling you that sex is marriage, right? That's what it's making a difference here. If you had sex, then you're married to you had sex with. You're now a wife. You're no longer a virgin. Virgins are not wives, right? But anyway, the unmarried woman cares for the things of the Lord, that she may be holy both in body and in spirit. But she that is married cares for the things of the world, how she may please her husband. And this I speak for your own profit, not that I may cast a snare upon you, but for that which is comely, and that ye may attend upon the Lord without distraction. So you see here how he's actually encouraging you, if possible, not to marry so that your focus can be completely and totally on God, because this world means nothing. You should build up your treasures in heaven. And you want children? Be like Paul, where he says he is a father as he's begotten you in the gospel, right? So if you want children, preach the gospel and you'll have many spiritual children, and this is eternal. If you get married and you have children in the flesh, those children are not guaranteed to believe and be saved. But all the children you have by the gospel are saved. Just to give you a little bit of encouragement there. As we said, to build up our treasures in heaven, not on earth, right? So I thought it was weird that Breaker was saying that they wanted him to get married. It's like that's a distraction there. Because when you're focused on going over and preaching the gospel, now you're worried about your wife, and you still have to deal with the same temptations you're dealing with over there that you would have dealt with if you were single. And now you have to worry about your wife dealing with those temptations because you're not there. It's the same thing that happens in the military all the time. It's like if you're married or just married, don't join the military. And you go overseas and your wife's alone, and she's going to be lonely. She doesn't know if you're going to come back. You just open the door to temptation. A lot of guys get what they call jodied, where they get a letter talking about how their lady has stepped out on them. They come home to their wife pregnant. Some stuff like that, right? And that's obviously a distraction to a soldier. And we are Christ soldiers. So that is a big distraction. Even on the wife side, you got your husband, your soldier for the Lord, going out doing missionary work, and that's a distraction from you doing your thing with the Lord, worrying about whether he's going to come back or not. What are you going to do with your life? You got all these things that pop up that wouldn't be an issue if you just weren't married in the first place. Not saying again not to get married, like Paul says, it's not a sin to get married. He's saying if you burn with lust, get married. And I've talked to somebody who's saying, yeah, so he's telling men to just get married so they can use their wives for sex. He's like, well, Paul is telling that to women as well. If you got that burning lust being a man, you got that burning lust being a woman, well, find a Christian who's dealing with that same issue of the opposite sex, and then you get married and you help each other out so that you don't sin, right? But you're going to have to deal with other issues then, right? We're all different, so we're all going to have to deal with different things. But we should be encouraging not to get married and to actually be preaching the gospel to the world. But all in all, Satan doesn't want you doing that. And he's done a real good job of this with Catholicism, where they don't even have the gospel in the first place, yet alone preach it to the world. They get their numbers by procreation, right? So instead of you actually getting the gospel out, saving souls, you're just making more bodies and more souls that need to be saved. And, dealing with some other issues, right? So I just wanted to make this video to actually encourage to give this life over as a sacrifice to God, and don't live this life trying to build up your education and your career and your business and your family, or even yourself other than your health, so that you're just a pilgrim here, just passing through, that you truly grab a hold of that and believe it and live it out. Because we all say it, but we don't all live it. So, yeah. I imagine this is what kind of teachings the 144,000 actually pay attention to. Because it says that they are virgins and they're not defiled with women. So that's something interesting there. So their focus is completely and totally on God. Jesus says that they follow him wherever he goes. Right? And that's how we ought to be. But again, I get it. This is not something that is something that we can just do. We all have our urges. And like Paul says, not everybody has the same gift. I think he says it up here. I'm not quite sure where, but yes, right here. At verse 7 he says, For I would that all men were even as myself, but every man hath his proper gift of God, one after his manner, and another after that. So he's saying he has a gift to be celibate, right? As he starts off the whole chapter here about it's good for a man not to touch a woman, but to avoid fornication, let every man has his own wife, and every woman have her own husband. And then he's saying once you're married, your bodies don't belong to yourselves anymore. They belong to your wife. They belong to your husband. So you need to help each other out with those sort of things. So make sure you're marrying somebody that you're willing to give into what they want and they're willing to give into what you want. But yeah, I guess I'll just start rambling on if I don't cut it off here. So thanks for watching. Take care. Oh, wrong button.